Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mania, for the introduction. So I'm really very much pleased to be here today. And we have here, sorry, let me see. Wait. Okay, thank you. So we have already listened with all the presentations today how much cultural heritage is at risk. So it is without any doubt that attention has been dedicated increasingly to the problem of climate change impact on cultural heritage during the last 10 years in particular. But unfortunately, we did not succeed in a concrete transfer of the scientific results to the policy level. So this is one of the first sentences that I would like to use for starting this presentation. So this topic has been at the center of the debate at the conference that has been organized last year in Naples of the different Ministry of Culture of the European and Mediterranean region, and had been highlighted how much the Mediterranean is a climate change hotspot, and that we are all committed to safeguard and protect our cultural heritage. So you can see in this map, which is taken from the UNESCO website, which is a distribution of the different natural and cultural heritage that we have, sites that we have in Europe. And it has been underlined clearly that, okay. So now it seems that we are connected also remotely. So I was saying that in this slide, you can see how much cultural heritage sites we have in Europe and in the Mediterranean. And in this conference has been highlighted how much it's important to cooperate together in order to protect and safeguard our cultural heritage. Unfortunately, even though in the last report of the IPCC, there are mentions to the protection of cultural heritage, I have to say that I'm not still happy about the results, because still we do not have measures specifically dedicated to the protection of cultural heritage. Even though we have the knowledge, it is true that it's limited, but we have the knowledge. So the speaker before me have highlighted, for example, the Noah's Ark project. The NOSA project has been the first one 20 years ago dedicated to the protection of cultural heritage impacted by climate change. The Institute of Atmospheric Science and Climate has coordinated this project. And I must say that a lot of work has been done during these 20 years. So we have knowledge about the observed impacts, the projected impacts, and we have also some tools for sure that has been developed during this year. This is, for example, the risk mapping tool for cultural heritage protection, which has been dedicated specifically to stakeholders in charge of the protection of cultural heritage, and has been developed during two Interreg Central European projects, Protect to Save and Strength. So with this tool, which is open, you can download different maps with scenarios of hazards, particularly extreme events linked to heavy rain, floods, and prolonged drought periods. And also you can evaluate which is the vulnerability ranking of your site. There has been also several initiatives also concerning the use of satellite data, Earth observation data, and the potential of application for the protection of cultural heritage. This has been done in the Copernicus Task Force, Cultural Heritage, and several still existing gaps has been highlighted, like, for example, the importance to go on in downscaling concerning the climate models, the importance of working in the quantification of the impacts and damage on cultural heritage induced by climate change by improving the existing functions and models of those effects, those response, and also in another thing that has been underlined is the importance to develop risk indicators. This is, for example, the work has been done by the Copernicus Cultural Heritage Task Force. This is a work coordinated by the Ministry of Culture. This is a very, complicated graph, but not so much. Let's see that the results of these graphs highlight that we have different services of Copernicus, like, for example, the climate change and the atmosphere monitoring service, which provide data in terms of climate and pollution that can be absolutely useful for the applications in the development of projections and of the state of the art of the impacts on cultural heritage induced by climate change and pollution impact. Here you can see the methodology at the base of the development of the risk mapping tool, which I stress again, it is open access. Everybody can access to it. And in this methodology, we have focused on extreme events, the impact of climate extreme events, and therefore, we have followed the function of exposure, vulnerability, and hazard. So we have worked on the hazard mapping with a higher resolution with respect to the projections available for the no hazard project. So we are here working with the Eurocore, the simulation experiments. We can have, therefore, data at a spatial resolution of 10 kilometers per 10 kilometers. And we have used the possibility, and we have considered also the possibility of different scenarios, of different projections with a pessimistic and stabilizing scenario, RCP 8.5, RCP 4.5, and also we have used the data from the climate change service of Copernicus. But all these data, which are temperature and precipitation in particular, has been elaborated by setting up specific climate, or let's say indexes of extreme climate, in order to be able to map the impact and to see the projections also for the future in relation to prolonged drought period, heavy rain, and flooding. We have also worked on the vulnerability assessment. I will show you a scheme in the next slide. And all this work has been set up in order to, at the end, being able to propose strategies of preparedness at local level. Here you can see an example. So these are the maps that can be downloaded by using this risk mapping tool. They refer in particular to heavy rain. The index that we use is air 20 millimeters per day. So you can see that in the more pessimistic scenario in the far future, we are going, for example, to have in Central Europe an increase of the events of heavy rain. This risk mapping tool allows also to see which is the situation of the past. So by plotting trends, you can see here, for example, from 2010 to 2020, which is the trend of air 20 millimeters and air per 5 day, which are two indexes that are used for making the evaluation of the likelihood of heavy rain and flooding events. And here in particular, we have studied and focused on the Wachau region in Austria, from Krems to Melk, and which is historically affected by flooding event. This is a picture of the flooding that happened in 2002. So the knowledge of the past, looking also at the past, but also study and analyze and record which are the historic past events. This for sure help us in order to be prepared for the future. This is the methodology that we have set up for the vulnerability ranking. Is an interactive tool. This is all available in is also available in the risk mapping tool of Protect to Save and Strange project. And I would like to stress that this methodology has been set up by an active involvement of all the different stakeholders working in the management and protection of cultural heritage. This is based on three requirements: susceptibility, exposure, and resilience. We have criteria and sub-criteria that are composed of a multiple choice like questions. Then each choice is correlated to a certain value. So the idea is to give a ranking of the level of vulnerability from 0 to 1, therefore from low to high vulnerability. Again, I would like to stress the knowledge of the past. So we have worked also a lot in looking at which has been the strategies put in place in the past for enhancing the resilience of cultural heritage. Here, I'm referring to the landscape, terrace landscape, where we are working with projects of training of local people in order to recover the dry stone walling technique. It is known that the dry stone walling technique, it is inscribed in the UNESCO list because the terraces and this building technique has been recognized as a strategy for the protection of landscape against hydrometeorological risk. So I would like to say that it's so much important to look at how has been done in the past. So capitalization of the existing knowledge is absolutely important. But also we need to harmonize the data. Grazia, for example, has mentioned that it's a problem of multi-source, multi-scale. So how we can take advantage of all the work that has been done up to now in order to identify the still existing gap and address the right direction. And also another thing that I would like to point out is that we need really to work in order to solve the challenges that are in the territory. So we need to solve which are these challenges and to find solutions for policy and decision makers and rescue bodies. So passing from the practical part to the decision making and policy, we have several reports issued. In particular, I would like to stress the one from the European Commission, Safeguarding Cultural Heritage from Natural and Man-Made Disaster in 2018. Grazia Tucci mentioned also the last report issued last year by the OMC of the member states. So these are very, in my opinion, pillar documents for trying to understand which are the still existing gaps. We have an example of good, I would say, transfer from the science to the policy in the Piano Nazionale National Plan Italian of Adaptation to Climate Change. The results, in particularly from the NOASAR project, has been concretely transferred to this plan. I must say that this result should be updated nowadays because 20 years has passed. So this is a lacking point. I have also to mention that fortunately also in France, the National Plan of Adaptation contains measures for the protection of cultural heritage. And well, this is really a good example, a very good and excellent example, because in addition to Ireland, in all Europe, Ireland, France, and Italy are the only ones to have measures for the protection of cultural heritage included in the national plans. So I'm arriving to the conclusion. Yeah, 3 minutes are fine, absolutely. And in the report from the European Commission of 2018, we have put in place recommendation in line with the Sendai framework for action for disaster risk reduction 2015-2030, particularly in order to implement the priority 4 on enhancing disaster preparedness. And you can see here in blue some keywords. So it is important to work in the damage modeling. It is important to work on early warning system, being able to go on in downscaling. So the projections need to be downscaled, if possible, projection of the impacts at a local level, which is quite difficult, I must say. And just to underline that, unfortunately, as I have already told, cultural heritage is not still considered a sector of priority in the different, I would say, recommendation and policy directives concerning climate change. We will, I hope, succeed in including climate change in the next assessment report of the Mediterranean related, impacts related to climate change. And finally, how much is this important? Also training in consideration of the fact that we need to have multidisciplinary professionists working for setting up an ideal, I would say, rescue team. Here you can see the work that we have done in the Protect to Save project, where we have set up the skills and expertise that a cultural heritage rescue team should have, and also by performing simultaneous size. My last slide, so we are also involved at national level. All this work will be also included in the extraordinary plan for safeguarding cultural heritage disasters, and we are working for having a more complete overview and perspective at national level, also in collaboration for sure with the project changes of the PNRR that also Grassetucci was mentioned. So I really thank you very much for your attention, and very happy to be here again.